Hey guys, it's Pastor John, and as we step back into our lunch with St. Luke, as we move back into the narrative, if you can remember, in our last episode, Zechariah the priest, who he and his wife Elizabeth had been praying for a baby for years and years, Zechariah was in burning incense in the temple there, Herod's temple, built in Jerusalem, and there in that really special moment, something which would really have probably been a once in a lifetime kind of opportunity for him, he meets an unexpected visitor. He meets the angel Gabriel. Now, I mentioned in my last episode that I didn't put a picture of the angel Gabriel because I didn't like many of the artistic renditions that I was finding, but I did actually find one which I think that you will find interesting. Let me go ahead and switch this over here to PowerPoint. I did find one that I think that you'll find interesting, that I really like, because I think it catches actually the emotion of it. I know a lot of people who are trying to depict this scene artistically were trying to do so realistically. That's obviously complicated when you're dealing with a supernatural experience that is therefore in reality something that's surreal, something that's different than what we're used to expecting. So this picture here by Albert Schwartz from the 1970s, that's actually in the Hermitage Museum, I think actually displays a good deal of the emotion of this scene, because of course this is a pretty tense and even takes a bit of a dark turn here, because of really where Zechariah's heart has been. Zechariah is a good guy, but Zechariah is a guy who has been dealing with and wrestling with what he has seen as an unanswered prayer for years and years. And as such, when the angel Gabriel gives him this message that they're going to have a baby, that John is going to be born, and that he's going to have a great purpose, that God's got a wonderful purpose for him, Zechariah's response was, how can I know this? Zechariah asked the angel. For I am an old man, and my wife is well along in years. Now listen, please do not hear me saying that it is a bad idea for us to ask questions. In fact, asking questions, we're going to see that as a good thing in the Gospel of Luke. Really, asking questions, the secrets of the kingdom of God are available to those who ask. Asking questions is, in many ways, the center of what it means to really learn how to be a disciple of Jesus, learn how to follow him, learning to ask those hard questions. The thing is, you got to ask those questions with the proper stance in your heart. If you just ask a question, that's a good thing to do. But if you ask a question and it's combined with anxiety, well, then what you really have floating around in your heart is a doubt. And God is gentle and compassionate and patient with our doubts. He most certainly is. And all of us as Christians face that at times. However, if you add to that question and that anxiety, you add to that a touch of cynicism, it starts to take a little bit of a darker turn, right? It becomes unbelief, a lack of faith. They're lacking the raw material necessary to experience what God really desires to do in your life. And then, if that cynicism really takes root to the point where you're kind of just deciding not to trust God, well, that's disbelief, and that's a really dangerous place to be. It's a really dark place to be. And Zechariah, I don't know if he's quite to disbelief, but he's certainly well into the unbelief level with his questions. Notice he's even citing his experience, citing what's kind of made him cynical. I'm an old man and my wife is well along in years. It's perhaps been a long time since they've even prayed to have a little one. That's probably a hope that deferred so long that, as the Proverbs say, hope deferred can make you sick, right? And that seems to be where this guy, who in general is a good guy, Zechariah, seems to be wrestling with his faith that God could ever solve that particular problem in their lives. Well, of course, going back to our picture here for a minute, we can see kind of the foreboding darkness here, and I think some of what's being expressed there is not only Zechariah's doubt, but I think some of it is also expressed, really expressing Gabriel's anger. The angel answered him, "I am Gabriel, who stands in the presence of God, and I was sent to speak to you and tell you this good news. Now listen, you will become silent and unable to speak until the day these things take place, because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled in their proper time." Wow. That would be a frightening response. I guess it's not a good idea to be too cynical when conversing with an archangel, right? Gabriel's frustration here is, based on, his testimony should be accepted because of, his role. His testimony should be accepted because, of course, he knows God. He stands in God's presence as one of God's servants. And he was sent to bring this message. And in fact, that term, good news, this good news of the baby going to be born. I want to show you the Greek term for this, euangelisesthai. Let me try that one more time. Euangelisesthai. It's a tough word to pronounce, but that word, the reason why I'm mentioning it is not to show off my Greek skills, which obviously aren't that terrific, but the reason why I'm showing you this word is because it's the word from which we get the term evangelism. This is an infinitive form of it, but it's a word from which we get the word to evangelize, to bring good news, to bring good tidings. The good tidings of good news being brought to Zechariah is there's going to be a baby who's going to be born, that they're going to have a son, John. The good news is also that God's got a plan for John. God's got a purpose, a mission for him, and that involves making the people ready for the Lord. That God was going to be up to something here. It's important for us to see that this word is being used here, because really Luke's going to use this word, throughout his gospel and into Acts. This idea of good news, of a good message to be proclaimed, and here we really have that, first going on as Gabriel is bringing this message to Zechariah. And so for Zechariah, his unbelief has, of course, consequence. He's going to have a period of time where he's not going to be able to speak, kind of a forced discipline of silence here. He's going to not be able to, he's going to have to play the mime for a bit. He's going to be unable to even talk about what this experience was, what's going on while he's alone there in the temple. He's going to be unable to speak until this happens, until John is born, simply because you did not believe my words, which will be fulfilled at their proper time. Notice God is still going to use Zechariah and Elizabeth. God is still going to carry out his promise. God still will have the baby John be born. God still has a plan for John. But there's a consequence for unbelief, and that's going to make the situation more difficult for Zechariah. I think that's a challenge for us to remember as we consider this passage today, that questions are good, and I encourage you to be asking questions as we go through the gospel together. But doubt is, of course, unstable and difficult, problematic. And as you move into unbelief and then cynicism and of unbelief, and then eventually towards really that lack of trust that is disbelief, wow, those are terribly dangerous places to be. So I want to encourage you, as we are studying the Gospel of Luke, to keep your heart stance before God, one of, asking questions, but of asking those questions honestly, of asking those questions with an attitude of trusting God, and asking those questions with a firm hope that God is going to fulfill what he promises. Hey guys, it's been wonderful having this time together today, and I want to encourage you to keep following Jesus. I'll see you next time.